Two.
Recording on. Oh, okay. Welcome everybody. Good evening. Today we are going to have a very interesting session. We have an industry expertise who is going to share his experience, industry experience that will definitely give you some idea about cloud computing in general. But Harnoor Minhas is our speaker. Harnoor has more than 18 years of experience. Specifically, he has been working on data analytics, software engineering, AWS cloud solutions, and he has an extensive experience in different industries, including financial industries and federal government organizations. So I'm going to give the floor to Hanur to tell you more about himself and why he is doing this interesting talk uh, titled Navigating Enterprise Cloud Deployments, Best Practices, and Strategies. Hanur, the floor is yours.
Oh, thank you. So thank you, Tessima. And I also want to give a special thanks to Rant for connecting me with the professor. So let's get started with today's session. So navigating enterprise cloud deployments, best practices and strategies. And a little bit of, I think I added is a real world practical view. So what I tried to do is add some practical flavor for you guys because I've been a student once and I have a, and we'll talk about like, I have a computer science degree and I have a master's in business administration. So when I was in the school, we went through the books and we went through the coursework, but always the books take some time to get published. So, some delay, there's some time delay, but I think like things are better, much better now. Like as I'm talking to you, professor, looks like you guys are up to speed with the cloud and everything. So I want to bring in a practical view from the industry perspective. And so as we move on to the next screen, so we're trying to, so I'll bring you like a holistic picture of how do we bring our cloud together? What are the different pieces of the cloud? What are the different types of cloud? Why cloud matters to a little bit. You guys are advanced students, so I'm not going to go too much in detail, but a little bit of context is always good, always
Let me
helpful.
interrupt you a little bit, Hanur.
Yeah,
So if
sure.
you have any questions, you don't have to wait for the Q&A session. If you have it, you can ask it, okay? Just ask. You can interrupt him at any time.
Yeah, guys, so feel free to interrupt me. Even if I'm not covering a topic, feel free to ask about the topic. Chances are I know that. So So going into the cloud, so basically we have a public cloud, private cloud, and we have hybrid cloud, and then we have the gov cloud. So the public cloud is the clouds you use like AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, Oracle Cloud, and so on. And the private cloud is something that can be installed on your premises. It is something that some companies do, especially for IoT devices and stuff like that. And hybrid cloud, as we move to the cloud, some of your stuff will be on premises, some will be in the cloud. So let's talk a little bit about me. Like, why should you listen to me, right? Like, why me? So, as the professor gave you some introduction, I have 18 years of work experience, including 15 years of full-time work experience with all aspects of data warehouse and business intelligence. So, basically, I worked on getting data from all different aspects, so all different applications in the organization, bringing it together to give you the company, the clients, the users a holistic perspective of how things are happening. To give you an example, I worked at Quicken Loans. So Quicken Loans is a mortgage company or a home loan company. So what we did over there was we reached out to folks to sell them loans. And so what's happening there is as we're reaching out, the company is growing. So the company at the time I was working there had 15,000 employees. So the goal was to make sure the employees are being efficiently used. The goal was to make sure the clients are being served well, people are not on the phone calls for long. Uh, so the company was buying leads from other companies. So for example, you might have gone to Bankrate or any other website. You go there, you put in your SSN to get a loan, plop, it goes to 10 different companies. So now the goal is to call right away, call right away. So the company had built some logic in and all the different processes to make sure they were the first to call the person. So just to give you an example, and then we wanted to track how much money we are spending on marketing. and the company had $1 billion, and I'm not kidding you, $1 billion of marketing budget. So that was really awesome. When I heard that first, I'm like, are you kidding me? So a little bit about myself. So I worked at Quicken Loans. I have worked with Amazon Web Services as a technical trainer. Uh, I did talk about my degrees. So I do have experience in public, private sector, as well as financial sector. I also own a couple of companies, couple of websites. I'm also a life coach and spiritual. I've also gone a little bit into cryptocurrency. At one time, I had 16 graphic card mining rig set up in my basement. If you guys are interested, we can talk later. All right. So what are we going to learn today? So I divided this presentation into 6 sections. The first one is what the cloud, like what is the cloud? Like the basics, which some of you may already know. Hopefully you learn something new because my goal is to add some value and give you some practical advice, some practical experience, which you can take back and learn from it and hopefully get a job. My goal is to help you practically, not just like talk for the sake of talking. My goal is to help you as much as possible to be a mentor, to be a guide, to help you get a job. So that's my goal. Uh, how the cloud. So how do we plan the move to the cloud after we know what the cloud is? And then we gotta go into the nuts and bolts of the move to the cloud. How does it work? And then after we move or start moving, how does the deployment look like? How does the maintenance look like? How does the picture look like? Is it ever done? So that's why I put it like, and it's done. Is it done? And then number 5, practical skills on how to get a job. So I wanted to add something for you students. And I have a little section on if you want to collaborate with me. I like to mentor students. I like to help you with your resume, your LinkedIn, your career guidance. If you're interested, we'll talk a little bit about that. So before we move forward, does anyone have any questions? And feel free to put it in the chat, put in the comments, unmute your microphone and ask me. Feel free to interrupt me. Even if the topic is not covered, chances are I would know it. And if I don't know it, I will note it down and I'll get back to you guys. All right. So now, what the cloud. So we're going to cover the cloud basics. So basically, the cloud refers to servers that are accessed over the internet. You have certain software. It could be databases. It could be different applications. And we're going to go a little bit deeper into that. So as far as cloud computing goes, so the number one thing, and this thing is important, so you may want to write it down. So what are you doing in cloud? There's compute, there's storage, and there's networking. These are the 3 things happening at the basic level. So this is very, very important. I know I like to simplify things. So you probably already know that, you know all the different services, but this is what's happening, right? You have servers, they have compute, they have storage, which is RAM or hard drive, and there's networking. So you pay for the compute, you pay for the storage, whether it's RAM, whether it's hard drive, based on like the technology and the networking. So another really important concept, like you need to know, and it's really, really important. Like we often skimp on this is when you put data in the cloud, you don't get charged a lot for that. But once you move data out of the cloud, you get charged a lot, especially if you're doing like some video streaming and some other stuff like that. So you got to be careful about that. Just because you're using the cloud doesn't mean everything is cheap. So ingress is cheaper, egress costs a lot of money. And by the way, everything is listed. So this is really highly important topic. So I'm mentioning that. So please note it down. Especially for you, professor, as well. You're probably trying to keep the cost down. So then we have different types of services. The services can be partially or fully managed. So fully managed services is where you want to manage the server, you want to install the updates. Obviously, the hardware is taken care of by AWS or like Azure or Google Cloud or Oracle, whatever cloud you're using. But the software will be managed by you. All the updates will be managed by you. Now there's some partially managed services where everything is installed for you. And then we have like, services, software as a service or serverless functions and things like that, where you don't have to manage anything. All you do is write code and it just executes. All right. And the other advantages is, you can get stuff on demand. So why is that important? Like on demand. So one example I can give you is at my previous company, we spent like $2,000 to just get a computer for machine learning. It had like, state-of-the-art graphic cards and all that. And after we were done, it was just useless because we had to buy something else. So now with the cloud, You can just pay partially for the state-of-the-art compute and test it out. So you don't have to spend like a couple of thousands of dollars. Just to give you an example, you can do quick experimentation, you can do POCs or proof of concepts, and then you can let it go. And the other thing is pay as you go. You don't have to pay fully. You pay as you go. Like, it's really good for startups. It's really good for businesses. They don't have the upfront cost. You can pay slowly over time. And there's different pricing models. You also get discounts if you pay for bulk usage as well. And the more you use, the cheaper it gets. One of the examples is in AWS S3. The more storage you use, they start charging you cheaper rates based on how you use it. And everything in cloud is interconnected. So that's another cool thing. When you're installing software, what happens is you have to configure this, you have to configure that, you have to configure like the different ingress and egresses, you have to configure the firewalls, you have to configure the software. It's just so much. So when stuff is integrated, interconnected, and things talk to each other, it makes your life very, very simple. Of course, there will be a learning curve, but once you understand, it becomes very simple. All right, so now let's talk about how the cloud works. So this is really important, guys, so note it down. This is one of the most important things. Everything in cloud is an API call. What does that mean? You're not directly connecting to any service. Everything you're calling is an API call, whether you're using the command line, whether you're using the web interface, whether your service is calling another service, everything is an API call. So let me ask you a question. Why is this important? Anyone want to answer this? Why is it important that everything is an API call? What are the benefits of that? So we have 22 students. Who wants to answer?
Like I can answer that.
Mhm.
So like APIs, like basically these are the interfaces for your applications that you don't want anyone to access directly, so they can just like it's an easier way to interact with your services. So you just make API gateway so that anyone can interact and get the information they want.
So why is it important that everything in cloud is an API call?
Because you do not want everyone to direct. First of all, there are a lot of services,
Mhm.
and you can like so the basic task is to make things into segments and like to make it very specific. If someone wants a
Modular?
very specific action, yeah, modular way.
Got it. And then
Right.
I think you kind of briefly touched on security as well.
Yes, right.
వెళ్తున్నా ఆగస్ట్ కి
ఆగస్ట్ లో
Uh,
సాఫ్ట్వేర్ భక్తులు
are you talking to me? Like if somebody's speaking on the phone, can you please mute if you're not speaking to me? Thank you. So yeah, so those were like really good things. So we want to make sure security is there. So every
Yes.
time that an API call is done, it can be logged. So each API call can be logged separately. If you want to see like, any security intrusion or something like that happen, now you can actually look at the logs. Again, not everything, not all API calls are logged by default because, it takes some storage. So you may have to enable depending on the cloud service provider. I am very familiar with AWS. So in AWS, you have to enable something called CloudTrail. It'll actually turn on more services. So note this down, guys. So wherever it's important, I actually put it in a different color. So now with the cloud, the software is installed, it's updated. A lot of time you might have heard like some companies got hacked because of the default password, admin, username admin, password admin was used, or they did not patch the servers. So if you're using a managed service, the service can be a lot of time like the patches are done automatically. You are given options to do that. The reason it's managed is because they don't want you to break your existing, service. Sometimes you use a fully managed one. Sometimes you have the choice of partially managed. And then, as you already may be familiar, like we have data centers, and data centers have servers, and servers are put together in availability zones, and availability zones are put together into regions. For example, the North Virginia region, Ohio region. And what that gives you is gives you redundancy, it gives you high availability, it gives you resiliency. It doesn't give you a single point of failure. All right. So now let's see what are the broadly speaking, different types of cloud services. You can create probably 12, 15, 20 different types. So software as a service, for example, Microsoft Word, you could use Adobe like Adobe Photoshop as a service. Platform as a service, if you want to use .NET, if you want to use Python, you can just have a platform up and running for you. Function as a service, one example is Lambda. Google is known for its serverless services. It's one of the cheapest. Infrastructure as a service, if you want to have servers running for you. Desktop or DB as a service. One really cool example for DB as a service is Snowflake. It's one of the most sought after service right now. You can also have virtual desktops. So now the basic thing, and you probably know this, and it's probably an overkill for this class. So, you create an account. The account is an identifier. That's what you use to access. So an account can have sub-accounts, and typically in an organization, the thing I want to stress on, and you may want to note this down, is you create organizational units. So what that helps you do is when you actually have an organization, all the billing shows up under that organization, and also helps you get the volume discounts, such as for storage, network traffic, and all that. After you surpass a certain limit, it helps you put it all together in billing. It helps you a lot. So you'll be using org units. And the other thing that helps you with is sometimes you're trying to deploy infrastructure. So with the cloud services, once you have accounts as sub-accounts of others, you can actually have, so in case of AWS, you can have like CloudFormation scripts, which help you deploy infrastructure. You can create multiple accounts and you can actually pass. So for example, if there's a security thing you're doing, or if you're adding some IP address inclusion or exclusion list or something, you can pass it to the whole organization. So that's what organizations help you do. IAM, identity access management. We'll talk a little bit more about that. So basically, you get in, you say who I am, and then what do I have permission to use? And then the connection to the cloud is important. How do you connect? Do you connect securely using a VPN connection? Do you use a fast connection using something as a direct connect in case of AWS? And other cloud providers also have that. It's a direct high bandwidth connection to your premises, so you can actually get the service much faster. It also provides you security because it's a private connection. And then you have the regular way of just accessing over the public internet as well. And VPC is just a private piece of your cloud. So the cloud is already virtual, but you say this is mine. So basically all the network hardware, all the IP addresses, everything is reserved for use. And the data, so because the account is shared by multiple accounts, so it makes sure that it provides that security. So now the benefits of using cloud, I'm gonna quickly go over this. Easy to use, flexible, pay as you go, it's cost effective, it's reliable, there's multiple points of failures. You can also have multiple availability zones. You can have your stuff running in multiple places. Highly scalable, highly performant. Again, you pay for what you get. And security. All the patches are there, and the cloud service providers, they actually are certified with all the different, things like HIPAA for medical stuff. They probably have like hundreds of certifications they go through. So they are the most secure. Even getting an entry into a cloud, into a server room takes a lot of different steps. So, so they make sure all the certifications are there, and it's really not feasible for any smaller organization to do that. So the cost benefits are there. Plus, they buy servers in bulk, so they can pass on the savings to user. So some practical tips. I'm trying to add some practical tips here and there. So latest technology, that's really important. Because as an organization, you may not have a lot of folks who can figure out what's the latest technology, what software to use, what patches to install, how to configure all that. It's very low maintenance. The hardware is taken care of for you. Even the software is taken care of you for the most part. The service integration, we did touch on that. The cost saving, especially when you're doing POCs, you don't have to buy the hardware. You can just have flexible costs there. You can even pay by the second, depending on the service. It helps you standardize resources, standardize training. So it's not like somebody has to learn, oh, how do I use this or how do I use this software? Everything is standardized. There's a ton of reusable code and repository. This is something that helped me a lot as a developer. So when you go with a cloud service, and especially a popular one such as AWS or Azure, there's a ton of stuff available on the Git. And there's a lot of different scripts that can be reused to not only just code, also to create infrastructure. The microservice architecture helps since you're able to spin off different services. One of the practical advantages is like, for example, I know Python, somebody else knows .NET. So it's not like we have to have the software only use Python or .NET now. Somebody can just code a function in the language they are familiar with, and they can just create the piece. So it doesn't matter. And then you're creating the output as a JSON file, and the JSON is used by another service. So it doesn't matter. Everything's decoupled. If you're using serverless, that's the way to go. Flexibility of using the platform, and we did touch on that. So low switching costs. If you, let's say I want to move to Azure tomorrow, I can just move my code. I don't have like a lot of switching costs, like some stuff I may. So does anyone have any questions? All right. So we did talk about the cloud. So now how do we move to the cloud? So you want to understand the purpose. You want to see like what are all the different variables you have in the company? What is the different software you're using? What are the different technologies? So let me ask you this. So now, what is the number one question an organization would ask before they move to the cloud? And I'm sure like there's more than one question. So I want some participation. Yeah.
The cost.
The cost. Okay, cost is one. What are other factors?
Reliability.
Can you expand on that?
So like how the resources will be distributed, or like how the data security, like how
Okay,
secure
good.
you can transfer the data.
Security, data transfer, anything else?
Why should this company move to cloud?
Yeah, that's a very important question. Why move to the cloud? Excellent. We face the same exact question. Why should we move to the cloud? And in our case, the reason was because our competitors are moving to the cloud. We didn't want them to have the first mover advantage. We wanted to make sure we can compete. Anything else? So let me ask you this. So you are an organization, you're moving to the cloud, right? So like Rand said, cost, somebody else said security. We don't know which cloud, right? So it's important to figure out what cloud should we use, right? By default, you guys might be using AWS, but like as an organization, you might be like, what cloud should I use? Because different vendors may be giving you different opportunities, different discounts, right? So for example, if you are a SQL Server shop, it may make sense to go with Azure, for example, because it's right in your home, right in your base. If you're using Power BI for business intelligence, you may want to use Azure because it works really seamlessly. On the other hand, with AWS, it takes a lot more effort to use something like that. Because that's what we experienced at Rocket Mortgage or Quicken Loans. We ended up using some of the Microsoft services in Azure, Power BI in Azure, and we integrated both the clouds together. So which cloud should we use? So how do we evaluate? So we did touch on some things like quality, security, how resilient the cloud is, what is the uptime? You want to look at the SLAs. You want to look at the infrastructure as a whole, how mature the cloud is, how available it is, security, what tools, how easy it is to use, right? So how do you do that? So there's like this Gartner Magic Quadrant. I don't know if you've heard. This is something that a lot of companies used. So basically, the Gartner defines, so they do a lot of different analysis on different services. So they define cloud platform service as standardized, automated, public cloud offering, integrating infrastructure services such as compute, network, and storage, and platform services. So what they do is they analyze all the different cloud service available, and they actually see which ones are the leaders, which ones are the challengers, which ones are niche players and visionaries. So on the bottom, you see completeness of vision. As you go towards the right, there's more completeness in the vision of the cloud provider. And as you go up, it's the ability to execute. So let me see if I have the definition. So completeness of vision is like they are looking into the future, and ability to execute is, talk is just talk. They're actually able to provide the services. They're resilient. They're able to provide the high availability. They're able to walk the walk, not just talk the talk. So this is the latest one. So if you go to AWS, they show a slightly older one because Microsoft is a little behind in that, but I picked the latest one. That's October 2023. As you can see, AWS and Microsoft are pretty close and Google is behind, but it still doesn't show you. So what I did was actually I overlapped. I put some numbers there. So I can see that AWS was 60, 57. So I basically did the math. AWS is 117 total, Microsoft is 114, slightly behind, and Google is 70. So it looks like Microsoft is really catching up to AWS and is giving it, AWS a run for its money. So one of the again, the practical thing I'm going to share with you is the reason Microsoft is able to do so well is because they had AWS, right? So they could learn from their mistakes. AWS has things like RDS, Relational Database Service. Microsoft may call it something else, right? Maybe calling it database. I don't know exactly what they call, but they were able to give things more easy naming conventions. They were able to integrate, they were able to create the GUI much better, easy to use. So that's one thing I noticed in Azure, but I'm still more familiar with AWS, although it's a little bit more complicated. So the Magic Quadrant is something the companies follow for evaluating many different products. For example, if you want to see business intelligence tools, which one to use. So this is something that's highly used across the industry. And they have a lot of different white papers. Chances are the company you may end up working for may have a subscription to Gartner as well. So any questions, guys, so far? So we decided a cloud based on things like cost, flexibility, security, scalability. So what's next? So we are moving to the cloud. What's next? So you look at your technical debt. You look at all the different applications. What database services? Where are they stored? What file systems do we have? What are the different types of connectivities? You look at basically everything. So you make a grand list of every single thing you have. And it's not an easy thing to do. Sometimes it may take months, sometimes it may take years. So you basically start listing down things like we use PHP, we use CSS, we use JavaScript, we use this version of this C++ or whatever. We start noting it down. And then you want to figure out like, okay, so we got it. Now, what's the deployment plan? How do we deploy it, right? And then what order to deploy it? So now one thing that's really, really important for you to consider is like, like the marketing message, all the cloud provider will give you, oh yeah, it's seamless, it's very easy to use. You can just go in, you can plug and play all that. But the real world is not that simple, right? So we have a lot of different ways things are done, a lot of technical debt. As companies start developing software, not everything is using the latest and greatest, right? In technology and best practices. So as you start looking, you're like, wow, sometimes things are such a big mess, you don't even know where to start. So it's really important to start figuring out which things are easier for you to start. You start doing some proof of concepts or POCs, so you can figure out things as you go. So initially, like the cloud providers may give you a sandbox, like I worked at Rocket Market. They gave us a sandbox where they're like, do whatever, this is your thing. So play with it, play. And I think they gave us like a ton of like free resources there. All right, so now what's next? So in an organization, and this is for you students, you may want to note this down. So there's three different main types of roles related to cloud. There's solution architects, the SysOps engineers, and there's developers and or slash engineers. And there's a ton of engineers. So these are the things, again, I don't know what roles you're looking for, but if you're looking for cloud roles, these are the three different types of roles. Typically, there's like few solution architects, there's more SysOps engineers, and then the most number of people are developers. And what will help you get started with this is getting certifications. Certifications really, really help you understand. They also help you get a leg up when
Harnoor, I guess we lost you. We lost him, right? Or
Yes, sir.
it was my problem. Is that my problem or?
No, 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 we lost him.
Okay, okay. Let's give him a little bit time to come back. We have a good turnout. We have around 30 students. That's good. I was expecting 40, but 30 is good also.
what's that?
Well, we lost you for a bit. Harnoor? Harnoor.
Are we good? Yes.
Yes, now we can see you. We can see you, but not your screen.
Oh. 1 second.
Your screen simply froze. So and it's showing some kind of amber color. Maybe that's your Wi-Fi. Oh, we lost you again. Okay. While waiting for Harnoor to come back, just to let you know, I received an email from AWS today saying there was some suspicious activity. Okay, you're back.
Okay.
Harnoor.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know what
Now I
happened. Give
guess
me a sec.
your connectivity it seems stable. Okay, we lost you again. So what I was saying, somebody was trying to access. Okay, you're back now. Okay. Oh,
Mhm.
now you can start.
Okay, so where did I leave off? Were you on this screen or the previous screen? Which screen was I on?
You were talking about this one, the
This
role.
one, okay. Okay. So this is really important for the students. So there's three different main types of roles. So typically you'll have some solution architect roles, maybe a handful, more sysop engineers. So basically they are configuring, they are maintaining the cloud, and then the most developer or engineer roles. And the certifications in the cloud of your choice would really, really help you. And as I mentioned, you may or may not have a sandbox account to play with. If you're, again, I don't know what roles you're looking for, but if you're looking for cloud-based roles, these are the three main types of roles you will be competing for. So now, as you get to the cloud, some practical advice, like everything changes, processes change, tools change.
Okay. We
Of a team.
lost. Okay, we lost
Can you hear me?
we lost you for a bit.
Is everything okay?
Yeah, but your screen is frozen. Harnoor? Okay. Let me pause the recording. Okay, so the AWS team was saying there was some kind of suspicious activity because I guess one of your EC2s was trying to access another EC2 without any authorization, and that triggers a suspicious activity alert. And they contacted VT. I explained to them about the whole account process. I didn't check my email yet, but I'll let you know what they say. Mostly, the due date for the project one is tomorrow, right?
Yes, sir.
Maybe somebody is frantically accessing everything.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes.
I'm using my phone connection. Hopefully it can keep up with the presentation.
Okay, now we can share your screen.
Okay,
And
third
let
time
me
is the
see.
charm.
Let
Yeah.
me resume the recording. Okay. Okay, I didn't pause it earlier. Okay.
Okay, so let's move on. So now let's move on to the cloud. So again, some of the things that may help you. Okay, sorry. Again. So now we finally have the plan. So you move to the cloud. So you're going to figure out what different tools you're using. What is your architecture? Your solution architect probably came up with the architecture. What are the different environments you're going to set up? What are the different security measures you're going to have in place? For example, you're going to use a VPN. Another thing the companies use is they have a pool of IP addresses that the company uses. So like they'll restrict it to only those IP addresses. They will have VPN connections connecting you from your personal laptops to the cloud. So all that is done by the sysops admins. You will be taught different standards for naming. You'll be taught different standards for creating IAM roles. Depending on your role, you will be given certain access and certain roles. And then you'll be provided training on encryption and all different procedures and practices in place as well. Another thing that's really helpful, and that's something that we often overlook, is white papers and documentation. So I highly recommend anytime you're trying to learn something. So for example, AWS has really quality white papers and documentation. They're world class. Highly recommend go check them out. Anytime you're trying to research something, don't just like Google something, because they give you the best of the best. It's latest. Chances are if you're Googling something, it may be behind. So if you're using Azure or whichever cloud provider you're using, use their white paper and documentation as much as possible. All right, so now, I forgot what I did the screen, so I'm gonna move on. Oh yeah, so I remember now. So what are the crucial building blocks of your cloud? So we did touch on that a little bit. So the first one is IAM, or Identity Access Management. So first you create a user. First you have an authentication, you have username, password, or you may have a different way, like you may have an FMA key or whatever way of authenticating who you are. Then you authorize to use certain different resources. You may be authorized to use a certain different object bucket. You may be authorized to use different services, different regions, and so on. So authorization helps you with cost saving. It also helps you prevent any unneeded changes. For example, if I'm a report generator or if I'm an admin, I'm just paying bills, I don't need access to a lot of different stuff. Maybe I just need access to a bucket where the reports are sitting. Also helps you manage your users in groups, gives certain group permissions to a group of users. And it also helps you create a central user repository, so it's easy to manage and access. So we did touch upon VPN a little bit. So you have your own private slice of the cloud. So in that, you can identify what different regions you can operate in, what is the range of IP addresses, how do you connect, whether you use VPN, whether you use a direct connection, like a private connection, a high bandwidth connection. So that is something your SysOps admins will do for you. And they will also create different accounts, such as a production account, beta account, depending on how the company is set up. You have Sandbox, which is basically playground where you can do anything. Then you have development, beta, test, prod, so on. So now you do all that. So is it really done? So what is the definition of done? So the thing you're trying to do is replicate your app environment to the cloud. And often there's different services, different ways. So you try to do your best. And then a lot of time you will have parallel systems running because your application is running. You're trying to make sure the data matches, everything matches. A lot of times there's redundancy when you actually move to the cloud. So it's not like you just move and then switch off everything, right? So you want to make sure everything is running fine. There's so many different parameters. Those systems, especially the critical systems, you don't want to shut them off. So a lot of time companies have systems running for like sometimes like months and sometimes years to make sure everything is fine. And slowly they start retiring the old systems once they check the data, once they check everything works fine, everything is okay. Because once you turn something off, it's really hard to turn it on. So sometimes you may actually end up spending more money. So although you might think using cloud saves you money, not necessarily, because there's training, there's other resources. So eventually the promised goal is to save money, if that makes sense. So you may also have a hybrid architecture, because sometimes you may have old, really legacy applications running on databases like COBOL, some really complex logic monolithic architecture, which is really hard to understand and move to the cloud quickly. So in my company, what we ended up doing was we actually started creating microservices to replicate and started pulling off different services from our existing system. And it was a multi-year project. By the time I left, it was still going on. But just to tell you some complexity involved. So there's always going to be new challenges. There's always going to be problems. So it's a continuous thing. You keep on going and learning, and that's how life is. So so again, the practical advice is an ongoing, continuous process, and I highly recommend enjoy every step of the way. Don't just like wait, oh, once I do this, I'll be happy. Once I do this, I'll be happy. So enjoy the whole process of learning, because that is it. Like you're doing it, you're finally doing it. Don't think I'll do it when the deployment happens. Don't think I'll do it when this happens. It is happening right there and then. Any questions, guys? So next I'm going to talk about some practical skills for the students to help you get some jobs, help you get in the market, to shine your resume, to show yourself, hey, look at me. I went to Virginia Tech. This is my resume. So before that, so this is the end of the cloud part. Do you guys have any questions about anything we talked about? Hopefully you guys are still there.
Yep, don't be shy.
Oh, yeah.
Ask questions.
Okay. I feel like we may have questions in the next few slides. So in this section, I'm going to give you guys some practical skills. So let's be practical, right? You go to the college, the goal is to get a job, right? The goal is not to just get a shiny degree and just forget about it, right? So you want to use the skills you learned, and the goal of your professor is to help you get placed, get the job. And that is my goal too, to help you as much as possible. Coming in from the industry, I was in your shoes once, and I used to be like, oh my God, like, I'm going to graduate soon. What are my internship? Like, what are my options and all that? So one of the really important things is, like, I mentioned some of the hard skills which are in demand, and there may be others, but these are what I'm familiar with. AWS and Azure are really, really high in demand. So if you pick one of these two cloud provider application and anything you pick, Python, Git is a repository, so I wouldn't call it a skill. It's more of a necessity. React and Angular for front end. Chat GPT is really popular right now. Again, I don't know what the future is, but it's really, really useful for creating chat apps. So what the biggest thing it's practical application I've used of seen of Chat GPT is it can actually traverse all of your website, and it can create a chat bot. So instead of people going to different parts of a website trying to look for answers, Chat GPT can answer it for you. So it can create a repository of all that information. So that is a really, really highly practical application, and I can see a lot of different companies using Chat GPT for that. If that's something you're interested in, you can build it, and I think it's like $10 or $20 a month. You can get the subscription. Chat GPT 4, I think it's the latest. The other one is Snowflake. Snowflake is database as a service. Again, highly in demand, comes with its own certification. They also give you $400 of free credit. Highly recommend that if you're going in the data space, analytics space. Then for data structures, they're highly in demand by big companies such as Facebook, Google, LeetCode, HackerRank. That's where the questions come from for the interview. Highly, highly recommended. Any questions on this, guys? All right. So now, how do you market yourself? That's really important. Like, I have interviewed candidates for different positions. So I have seen, like, both good and bad candidates, and I have learned from that. So I can give you some practical advice. So your degree obviously is important. The GPA may not be as important as you may think. It is important that you got the degree. Typically, we don't care about your GPA. Certifications, really of high value. It shows that you know the stuff. You're not just talking, you actually have the certification, you can do the stuff. Resume, it's really important, guys. A lot of times you have experience, but you don't mention it on your resume. If you don't mention it, your resume may not even be picked. So it's really, really important to brainstorm. Like, I know building a resume may be one of the most boring things, something you don't want to do, but it's the most important thing. It's your face. Before we see you, your resume is your face. So it's very important to work the hardest on your resume. Oftentimes I see people don't put as much work on their resume. Go through, brainstorm 5 times, 6 times, all the different keywords, look at the jobs, see if you've done the work. Don't try to like fudge it, don't try to create something. But chances are, if they're asking for something, you've done it, only mention what you've done. Because the questions we'll ask you are based on what you've done. So never, never, never try to fluff up your resume and say, I did this, because we can tell when you're lying about something, when you're making up something. So only mention what you have done. So that gives you a higher chance of putting your face up there and actually getting a relevant job. So make sure you will get a job. Don't worry about that, but make sure everything you've done is relevant. It's listed there. That's really important. LinkedIn, really, really important. LinkedIn is your professional profile. A lot of time people don't work on that. Again, LinkedIn, resume, I would say LinkedIn is oftentimes more important than resume. Oftentimes people get picked based on the LinkedIn as well. Technology you learn, the more relevant it is, really, really important. The hard skills I mentioned, look at that. Look at the other hard skills based on the job profiles you're looking for. And the other thing is, like, I think you guys are doing some real world projects. I would say try to find more ways to do some real world projects where you actually are able to build something which other people may want to use. So talking about that, so I do have some opportunities for you. So I'm offering myself as a mentor. So I'll be doing some group sessions with you guys. So where I'll be offering you tips and tricks on, I'll be reviewing your resumes, helping you build your resume, interview skills, mock interviews, and help you build a better LinkedIn presence. And you can look at my LinkedIn to see if you find it impressive, and you can reach out to me. And then I have two positions for one-on-one mentorship. If you guys are interested, you can reach out to me. So where I'll give you one-on-one mentorship guidance on how to actually do better at interviews. Again, I'm taking based on your passion, your determination, your investment in yourself. And then the third thing I'm doing is I'm looking for 4 volunteer positions. Again, it'll be based on your interview based on your skills. It's a great resume builder. You can put my company's name on there. So it's a real project for social media content posting automation. It'll be using serverless compute, API, mobile app, AI, machine learning, video, audio, caption processing, using machine learning, uses Python, Git. It's still in like research phase. So if you are interested, here's my email address. You guys can take a screenshot. And then on the next page, this is my business card. You guys can take a screenshot. My phone number is listed. My LinkedIn is listed. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. If you are looking for any of these opportunities, again, I'll go back. So mentorship, group sessions, one-on-one mentorship, and then the cloud technology project in case you have time. Again, I thank you guys very much for listening to me and giving me an opportunity to present to you. Hopefully I was able to add some value and you've been great. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you so much, Harnoor. Anybody, any questions to Harnoor? Anything in your mind that you need some explanation? You already have his info, and you can contact him directly. But if you have any questions that we can all learn from, let's hear it. Anybody? Don't be shy. So just to add something about this, the security certifications of this cloud services, Harnoor was mentioning about the health, the FIPA certification. Yes, AWS is certified for FIPA, but it is not certified for FIRPA. That means for education-related information. AWS has a good resource on called this AWS Academy. If you notice, I use their slides now and then when I talk about AWS. Unfortunately, we are a partner academy in the AWS Academy, but we cannot add any student, VT student, because their platform is not FIRPA compliant. What that means is, as a VT student, you cannot be added as a student on that platform. If you have any access, any other access than VT, please use that resource. They have good resource for data engineering, for machine learning, foundations of cloud, this data architect, cloud solution architect. They have bunch of courses that leads to certifications. So our course is not about certification. Our course is not about AWS, even if we are using AWS for practical part. But I guess Harnoor gave us the industry perspective, which of these cloud providers are hot commodity right now. If you have a knowledge about AWS, that's why. If you remember the beginning of the course, when we talk about why you have to take this course, we were mentioning about Gartner's statistics about what was the major problem that enterprises faced when they try to migrate to the cloud or when they try to use cloud services. If you remember, for large organizations, the second most challenge was lack of expertise. And we are trying to fill that gap with you guys, and most probably for the next batch. That's exactly what I want to say. So hopefully at the end of this course, you will have a clear picture of the industry together with the expertise that you need. Any questions before we wrap up today's session?
So other thing I wanted to mention, I do have 3 AWS associate certifications as well. If you guys are looking to prepare for them, I can also give you some insight into how to prepare for them as well.
Shihirari is an I'm learning a lot from Shihirari, so he has a lot of certifications on
Awesome.
and he is our AWS account manager. Don't contact him directly. Maybe friendly, yes, but not related to the course. You have to direct that question to me. Then I will redirect it if I found it relevant.
Okay.
Anyway, any questions? Thank you so much, Harnoor, for sharing your experience with us. And thank you so much for the rest of you for coming to this session. We had a good turnout. Hopefully, we will have a better turnout next time. This is also very good. We were expecting 2/3 of the class. We have half of the class. That's a good turnout. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Tessima, for inviting me. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good one, everyone.
Yeah. Bye, guys.
Okay, let me stop.